Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day 360. March the 4th, 2018, Sunday. Alrighty. Well, let's see what we have today. Let's see here. Well, Devin Nunes has told Fox News that there is evidence of collusion, and he says it's Democratic Party, Hillary Rotten Clinton campaign, and the Russians. Well, yeah, there was collusion there, Democratic Party, Hillary campaign, and the Russians. But actually, the way I see it, and I believe at some point I will be proven correct, I would say that I see collusion between the deep state, Hillary Rotten Clinton, and the Dems, and the media. But you keep digging, Devin. You're doing a great job. And eventually you'll get to the truth if you keep digging. To say that the Russians, as we know, had practically no impact on the election whatsoever. They do meddle in our affairs, and we meddle in theirs. Everybody meddles in everybody's business, and we've been doing it forever. If you believe that the Russians were the source of any of this evidence, alleged evidence in the dossier, then you can make that argument. But I don't believe that the Russians really were all that involved at all, other than a couple of con men who had probably no information from the official Russian government, Putin, people close to Putin. These guys that were being told in the dossier, Timofeyev and Milian and these guys, and people that were at the Trump Tower meeting, Afmishin and all these people, they're con men. They're lowballers. They mingle around in Georgetown and D.C. and New York doing what Russian con men do, trying to use some contacts they may have to strike up some business deals so that they can get a big chunk of change in some deal that they put together using Russians or Americans or whatever. These are just a bunch of low-level con men. And even if they were sources, they were probably paid. They don't know anything about anything. And even if there was a real intelligence operation by Putin and the Russian government and the FSB to fix the elections or impact the elections or anything like that, that would be such a closely held secret within the highest levels of the Russian government that it would never get out. It certainly wouldn't be passed along to a guy like Milian or a guy like Timofeyev, or any of these people. They would never get anywhere near that kind of, that level of intelligence. And if they did, as soon as they breathed the word of it, they would be dead. And whoever gave them that information would be really dead. So, I'm just not seeing the Russia thing. I'm just not seeing it. I think that we're going to find out that 95% probably of the information that was flowing into Christopher Steele was coming to him from Nellie Orr via her husband Bruce Orr, directly from the NSA database. It was coming from Fusion GPS, Mary Jacoby, and Glenn Simpson, and the work that they had done years ago. And again, their access to the NSA database before Rogers shut them down. It's coming from Cody Shearer and Blumenthal and Jonathan Steiner, who we know was the primary intermediary for Christopher Steele. That's coming from the Hillary camp. All this so-called evidence and all this so-called information that's in the dossier came from the inside the Clinton Fusion GPS universe, or within the FBI counterintelligence. That's where about 95% of it came from. So, yeah, maybe a little bit Russians, but again, I applaud Devin Nunes. I think he's going down the right path. I know he's on the House Intel Committee. He's the chairman. He's seen a lot of things I haven't seen. Yeah, I mean, he's seen a lot of things that indicate the Russians meddle, but they've always meddled. I guess you can go that route. It's fine, but I think people are sick and tired of hearing about Russians, Republicans, and Democrats. No one's really buying it. They've never bought it. It's never been something that they've ever been able to sell. Even from day one, people had no interest. We see it in poll after poll after poll, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. We don't see it affecting anything in the elections. We don't see it affecting anybody in their jobs. We don't see it affecting anybody in the economy, really, other than the fact that the Russians gain control of 20% of America's uranium. They've just acquired technology for their new ICBMs that they say cannot be shut down, which they got from a program the Rotten Reverend created. So maybe to that extent we can say, yeah, the Russians are involved. But ultimately, if you ask me where the collusion was, I would say it was between Crooked Hillary, the Rotten Reverend Clinton, the DNC, the media, and the deep state agencies, which would be the FBI, the DOJ, the State Department, and the IRS, and just all those deep state agencies working together with Clinton, the DNC, and the media. That, to me, was where all the collusion was. This stuff coming from Russia was insignificant, infinitesimal, and not a factor. That's the way I see it. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Either way, keep digging, Devin. You're doing a hell of a job. Eric Holder says that, let me start that over. Eric, Fast and Furious Holder, says Uncle Bob, the special executioner Mueller, already has the evidence on Trump for obstructing justice, but is waiting till he has Trump dead to rights. He said this to Bill Maher. No, Eric. In order for there to be obstruction of justice, there first has to be an underlying crime. There was no underlying crime, Eric. Not a one. Not a one you can point to, or anyone else. There was no underlying crime. No underlying crime, you can't obstruct justice. You can't obstruct justice over something that did not occur, you see. So he's wrong on that point. If Mueller, the executioner, does have anything that he's going to try to pull out of his ass, and I believe he probably will, he's going to do it as an October surprise 2 to 4 weeks before the midterm elections in 2018. He's going to drag this investigation on because that's what he was tasked to do. Drag it on, put a dark cloud over Trump, get to as many people around Trump as you can, throw up any charges you can, whether it's process crimes, old tax evasion crimes, all these types of things. Just keep it going, keep it going, keep it going until you reach close to the 2018 elections, and then come out and drop something on Trump that, again, is probably a process crime or some business dealing he had or something 10 years ago. Will have nothing to do with the Russians, nothing to do with collusion, and you won't get obstruction. And you're certainly not going to get a Republican Congress to impeach the president on something like that. And you can't charge the president with the crime. Mueller cannot indict Trump. Only thing he can do is give a report to the Congress at the end of his investigation and say, here's what I found. And then, of course, that would move to impeachment hearings, which would be handled by the Republican-controlled House and Senate. And they're not going to roll Trump on some sort of crazy obstruction charge. They're going to have real, hard evidence of a real crime. First of all, it will be political suicide for any Republican to vote to impeach Trump right now. He's extremely popular. And he's saved their butts. And he's raising lots of money, something they can't do on their own. They'd be fools to roll on Trump, even if they don't like him. Even if they don't like him. And how many anti-Trumpers do you hear much about them anymore? They're still out there, and they're still working behind the scenes to stab him in the back. But you don't hear very much about them. And any of them that tried to come out with any anti-Trump rhetoric during the election, they'll be defeated. Why do you think Jeff Flake, the Flake, is not running? Why do you think Bob Corker is not running? Why do you think other anti-Trump Republicans have decided not to run? It's because they're on record as being anti-Trumpers, and they know they'll lose, and they'll lose in embarrassing fashion. That is why they're not running. And that is why Eric Fast and Furious Holder is nuts and stupid. But we hear that the IG, Inspector General Horowitz, may be looking back a little farther than most people thought. He may be looking back to the obstruction that occurred under the Obama administration, and that would be you, Eric Fast and Furious Holder, about your little gun running operation and about some other things that you were involved in and covered up called crimes, real crimes. Eric? But that's what Eric Holder says, and he's playing to his base. Again, I mean, what a corrupt son of a gun he was, man. What a horribly corrupt. And I'm not so sure he's out of the woods in all this either, because he also had a voice and he also had a responsibility on that Uranium One deal, where we turned over 20% of our uranium so that the Rotten Reverend and Slick Willie could get a $148 million donation to the Clinton Foundation, and Slick Willie could pocket $500 large. What Eric Holder got out of it, I don't know, but something tells me he got something. He was the Attorney General who was held in contempt, and unfortunately, they didn't move forward and prosecute him or put him in jail. They certainly could have, but they didn't. They let him off the hook. They always let him off the hook, and that's why they come back and keep running their traps, because they don't think there'll be any accountability for them. That's why we have to make sure this time that it happens. Everybody's talking about the trade war. Trump says, yeah, bring on the trade war. We will win. He's right. As a matter of fact, yeah, I mean, so Trump puts this tariff on steel from China. So then you get the Europeans who say, okay, and the Canadians say, okay, well then what we're going to do, I think the European Union, Juniker, said, okay, well we're going to put a tax on Harley Davidsons and various other things. Go ahead. Go right ahead. It'll hurt you more than it will hurt us. Won't be long before you'll say, peanuts, and it will be over. Because the biggest economy wins in a trade war. We are a very diverse economy. We can stand a year of trade war, and it will be worth it if it can get rid of the fact that we have hundreds of billions of dollars of trade imbalance. We have seen a lot of good jobs and a lot of good industry leave the country, and Trump's saying no more. He's been saying that for years. It's one of the reasons he got elected. Everyone knows we're getting screwed. If there's any politician out there, whether he's in America or Europe or anywhere else, and he's going to try to tell me that an $800 billion trade deficit with China, that a $350, $400 trade deficit with Mexico or anywhere or anyone else, or even the trade deficit we have with the Europeans is good, they're a fool. They're a fool. If they're trying to tell me globalism over nationalism, they're wrong. If they're trying to tell me trade wars are always a disaster, they're wrong. Trump is right, and he'll be proven correct, and we'll win again. You guys tired of winning yet? I didn't think so. Ron Johnson has sent a letter to the FBI and Rod Rodenstein demanding answers on why the FBI waited a month to act after discovering the Right Reverend Clinton State Department classified emails on the laptop of Anthony's Weiner. Also, Ron Johnson wants the unredacted transcripts of texts between Peters Ben Strokinus and Lisa Page. We basically know from the text that we have seen that Peters Ben Strokinus knew that George Taskus at the Department of Justice found out about what was on Anthony's Weiner's laptop computer. Others knew as well, including people in the media. And how long do you think he could have kept that quiet? Not very long. So we had to come out, otherwise we never would have seen or heard about those emails anyway. But I understand that the FBI were the first, the New York Police Department, New York Police detectives were the first ones that got their hands on that. Then they had the FBI come over and assist them in getting into the computer and looking at it. They knew right away what was on that computer. Thousands of classified, hundreds of thousands of classified emails, born classified emails, and emails that were from the State Department that were on Anthony Weiner's computer. Now, before we even get into any criminal liability for whether those emails were classified or not classified or anything else, just the act of moving government documents onto a private device away from a government device in itself is a violation of FOIA laws. You see, that's government property. It belongs to the government. People need to be able to look at it when they do a FOIA request. If you go do a FOIA request and the government says, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have what you're requesting. It apparently is not on our servers. Why? Because it was moved off. It was transferred off those servers onto someone's private server. In this case, the Rotten Reverend Clinton, Crooked Hillary, onto the laptop of Anthony's wiener. That in itself was a violation. But yeah, Peter's been stroking us. We learn from the text conversation between him and Lisa Page that they had no intention of, and Comey is involved in this as well as McCabe. They had no intention of telling us about those emails they found on Anthony's wiener's laptop. They sat on it for a month. And then finally, when they knew that it was going to be exposed that they had this information, they were forced. Comey was forced to come out a week before the election and say, uh-oh, we've just discovered these emails. No, you didn't. You've had them for a month. He lied again. And then, of course, in 2 days, over the weekend, they went through 500,000 emails and then came out, yeah, it's all good. A second exoneration 2 or 3 days before the election. By which point, I think most people were just sick of it. And they understood what a liability. The Rotten Reverend Clinton was a walking cybersecurity risk. Based on all the evidence we can see. She either cares nothing or knows nothing about it. And when you ask her about it and she's caught red-handed, she plays dumb. When she's wanting your vote, she's the smartest woman on the planet. When she gets caught red-handed committing a crime, she's dumber than a doorknob. That's the Clinton way. Yeah, they should get the unredacted, and we should get the unredacted transcripts. We're still waiting for those. Remember the months that were in question, those 5 months in question, that FBI said they lost them, and then the IG found them, turned them over to the DOJ. I don't know if the DOJ has ever turned those unredacted emails over to any of the committees investigating. I still haven't heard anything on that in a couple weeks. I'd be interested to know what the hell's going on. A Chicago law firm representing the Rich family has contacted Gateway Pundit to deny claims made by Butowski. Yesterday, on Saturday's video, I talked about the fact that Gateway Pundit ran a story based on a editorial, an op-ed in the Washington Times by a former Navy admiral, where he says that he had a conversation with Butowski, and Butowski told him, and he wrote it down apparently, date and time, it was sometime like December 2016, that Mr. Rich, Seth's father, told him, yeah, we know it was Seth. And we're very sad because it probably helped Trump get elected. And so, this is how the story ended up being talked about in the Washington Times. Well, now, apparently, the Riches, Seth Rich's parents, via a Chicago law firm, has contacted the various sources, I'm sure, not just Gateway Pundit, but anyone who ran that story, and especially the Washington Times, because they were the original source of the article. And they probably contacted the author of that op-ed, as well as Mr. Bukowski, to straighten that out. Now, there's a lot of questions about this. First of all, we know that the Riches, Seth Rich's parents, they're not people with a lot of money. They're a fairly modest, they live on fairly modest means. And they live somewhere like in flyover country, like in Iowa. I mean, I live in kind of flyover country in southern Ohio, kind of in the country part of southern Ohio. They live in like freaking Iowa or somewhere, like out in the farm belt. They don't have a lot of money. So why did they hire a high-powered law firm, high-dollar law firm in Chicago? These are lawyers that charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour. For them to do a week's worth of work for you could be 20 grand. The riches don't have that kind of money. Who's paying that high-powered, high-dollar law firm in Chicago? And why would the riches go to a high-powered... I mean, if they're going to go to a law firm at all, they probably went to, a local law firm. They didn't need a high-powered lawyer to come out and make a statement like that. A lawyer working locally in their town could have made this statement very easily for a lot less money. I mean, anybody, any lawyer, or even non-lawyer, the Riches himself could have come out and made the statement. Could have picked up the phone and called the Washington Times. Said, hey, this is Joel Rich. I just read your story in the Washington Times, your paper, by Mr. Badowski, who we know and have worked with before. And I just want to tell you that what he told you is not right. It's not true. Just want you to know that. It would actually carry a lot more weight and a lot more credibility if Mr. Rich would have made that call himself. Or he could have went to a lawyer in town who would have charged him probably $400, $500, something like that, to make a public statement on that. Somebody is bankrolling, is the money behind the Riches, and are keeping them very quiet, keeping them very insulated, keeping them and representing them. I mean, they're using Mr. Bauman's firm. I don't know if he's still around, but that PR firm's in D.C. They represent high-powered Democrats and union labor leaders and charge thousands and thousands of dollars a day. Certainly, Mr. Bauman said he was doing it pro bono. Really? I don't think so. Somebody was paying Mr. Bauman and his firm. Somebody is paying the Chicago law firm. Now, I wonder who that could be. Who can you think of that's from Chicago? Well, the Right Reverend Clinton is a native of Chicago. She lives in New York now, but she's actually from Chicago. The Obama is, of course, from Chicago, and he's in Chicago right now. Of course, I think he spends most of his time in Hawaii or traveling around the world or doing whatever he does, but he's actually a resident of Chicago, has a residence there. So who knows? And I'd like to learn more about this Chicago law firm, and I think I will. I think I'll take a look into this Chicago law firm and find out who it was and find out what their connections are to Clinton, the DNCs, and Obama. Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch says, no dossier, no investigation. He's absolutely right. Everything that Mueller is doing and the reason he's doing it and the reason he was put there in the first place was based on the dossier, which we now know is false. It's all a bunch of lies. And the warrants to get the wiretaps to investigate the people, the shit he got on Carter Page, which is nothing, and whatever he got on Manafort, all generated from warrants that were based on false pretenses, lies, omissions to the FISA court. He should be shut down. It should all be thrown out. And that's what Sessions should immediately step up and say, okay, I'm unrecusing myself. We now can see that the dossier was total bullshit. We can see now that the FISA court was duped and lied to. We're going to deal with both of those things. But what that means is everything that Rodenstein put in place with Uncle Bob is all based on fraud and lies. And therefore it's invalid. And therefore I'm shutting it down. And Rodenstein, you took part in signing off on a warrant based on one of those lies. And you're going to. You and Uncle Bob can hit the door together. And I'm back in full control. Hey, make me Attorney General. That's what I'll do on day one. I'll walk in the door, I'll pick up the phone, and I'll fire Rodenstein and Mueller on the spot. Call them in my office, tell them what the deal is, tell them their investigations are over, they're both out the door. And I'll tell Uncle Bob we'll be seeing him during the Uranium One hearings. The man who personally delivered uranium for the Right Reverend Clinton onto a tarmac with some Russians. We'll be talking about that as well. Rodenstein, on the other hand, is up to his eyeballs in both Uranium One and signing off on a fraudulent warrant to the FISA court. I would tell him he better go home and call a lawyer. Mr. President, I'm ready to serve as Attorney General tomorrow. I'm available. Give me a call. I'll take care of your problem for you. And I'll take all the political heat. I don't care. I'll enjoy it. New information. Obama and Fast and Furious Eric Holder provided funding of $45 million to create 1,000 school resource officers to work in schools. Armed resource officers. Obama and Holder suggested arming school staff after the Newtown shooting back in 2013. Yes, that's right. After the 2013 Newtown shootings, both Eric Fast and Furious Holder and Barack Hussein Obama, both, along with many other Democrats, by the way, said, yeah, we've got to do something. We got to look at this. We got to look at mental health, but we also have to get some security in those schools. We have to get some armed people in there. Well, the problem is then we allocated $45 million federal dollars. That's chump change to them. Obama spends more than that on one vacation. Holder probably spent 5 times that buying illegal weapons that were used to kill Americans, American border guards. There's about 98,000 schools in the United States. 45 million is not very much. It's like less than one resource officer for each school. You need more than that, and it shouldn't be coming from the federal government anyway. It should be coming from the local community, and each school is different. Each school has a different need, a different requirement, and each school may handle it differently. But the bottom line is, both Obama and Fast and Furious Holder, both on record, supporting arming faculty and school resource officers in the schools after the Newtown shooting in 2013, with many Democrats signing on to it. Dick Durbin, or as I call him, Little Dick Turban. Little Dick Turban says that Dems will punt on DACA until after 2018 midterms. That's funny. He thinks they're going to win. The Democrats think they're going to win in 2018. Now maybe Uncle Bob, the special executioner, has told them that he's going to drop the October surprise on Trump, and it's going to help them win the 2018. I don't know what's going to happen. That's we'll see. But as things stand right now, I don't see them winning back the House in 2018. What are Democrats going to go vote for? Right now, they're a party that's split. They have progressives who hate them and will not vote for them because they're too much in bed with the corporate donors. If they play to the progressive base, then they lose the corporate donors. They can't win without tons of money because they have to pay people to vote. They're stuck between, like I said, they're between a cock and a hard place. I don't see how they win. I think the Republicans will pick up at least 2 seats in the Senate. And I wouldn't be surprised if they break even or maybe even pick up a couple seats in the House. Now, the Dems might pick up a couple seats, but they're not going to win back to Congress, I wouldn't think, unless something extraordinary happens. What is there for Dems to vote for? There is nothing. Nothing. Except for, they're not Trump. But Trump's economy is going to be kicking butt by then. It's kicking butt now. And the fact of the matter is, right now, the reason they're punting is because the judge, a judge has ruled that DACA stands for now. But it could be overturned a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. I think it will be. Before the 2018 vote comes up, probably sometime even before the middle of the summer. They're going to overturn DACA. And the Democrats will then really be stuck. They'll be stuck hard. And a lot of these DACA people, they want this deal. They say Trump's going to offer all of us legal status if we do this, this, and this. Yes. They want peace of mind. They want it solved now. The Democrats want to punt. Stupid move. I don't know who's advising Democrats, but they're stupid as hell. They really are. CNN has hit an all-time low. Ratings are down by 30%. Not only that, that's all, since last year, they're down, just in 1 year, they're down 30%. But not only that, not even one of CNN's programs made it into the top 20 in cable news rankings. Not even one. Not even one. Meanwhile, jobless claims have reached their lowest point since 1962. 9. Winning. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a good Sunday evening. I'll be back on Monday with more TowerGate news. Take care.